Hello and welcome to another video. So today we're taking a look at an unlimited deck. We're going to have a few unlimited videos coming up soon, so hopefully you guys can enjoy those. But first up, we are playing Aggro Blood. So overall, Aggro Blood is an extremely good deck for consistency, as it's very easy to pull off a lot of low drops. You can run into, of course, some problems going up against something like a Rune, which has a lot of big drops towards the kind of start of the mid game, which is where you're kind of trying to close it out, and they can really pressure you there. So other than that though, this deck did perform really well for me. I was really happy with it. I am running one Vania Nightshade Vampire because I just don't have 3 commanders, and Vania seemed like an okay fit for that kind of middle curve, since I couldn't really think of anything else to throw in here other than maybe Dark General, honestly. Probably Dark General, better to run if you're looking for a replacement, but other than that, we're going to get right into it and check it out. So first off, some Blood versus Blood. Blood is still a very common occurrence in Unlimited alongside Rune, and that's really it, all I've seen at least. Blood and Rune, majority of matches. I've seen a bit of Portal, Forest, you know, a bit of everything else, but the majority has definitely been Blood and Rune matches for me, currently. Although I have been seeing a few swords pop up occasionally, not that they've been much of a threat for a deck like this in particular. So starting off turn 1 with no play was a little disappointing. At least our opponent didn't have one either, so we can kind of take advantage of that and go for the Summoned Bloodkin. We do have the Hellblaze Demon play, but we don't have really anything to throw it onto yet, which is a little disappointing. So I do focus on, of course, Unleash Nightmare, trying to get some other cards into our hand. Unleash Nightmare has become very handy for pretty much every Blood variant. It's such a strong both draw and board play. Now we just need a good way to deal with this board, and really I couldn't think of anything outside of just, you know, throwing some extra power onto it. And I probably should have went for Urias instead of that there, but I didn't want to straight up lose Urias this turn, as I suspected they would have some counters, so I'd rather hold off at least one turn and drop it after they've been forced to remove most of this board, which looks to be the case. They have forced double Snarling Chains in Evo and a trade, so they really did lose a lot of value there. And now we can actually use Urias as a pretty decent partner for this. Since Vania is going to get us a ping, we're going to be able to trade in, kill it off, and still get some decent damage out of it. So now things will get a little more interesting with the Snarling Chains cleaning up the Urias, no surprise there, and the, of course, Omen of Lust, another really nice play for them. But we are left with 2 followers at least, so that is 4 damage, almost half their health just there, and if we even add Maiden, we get even more damage out of this. It's provided, of course, we don't kill off the 4-2, which is my initial plan. It's very rare that I got to use Dark Maiden effectively, and this game actually managed to pull it off, so I was quite happy with that. Really quite a nice play. They did go for the Enraged Commander, not a surprise when they already have Vengeance, but they really can't clear everything here, so a little disappointing for them. Next up, some Blood versus Rune. These videos are going to be reasonably short as far as quick aggro decks go. There's not a lot to show off. They follow a very linear playstyle, mainly just pinging off as much damage as possible and trying to set up as bigger boards as possible. Really the only thing that these decks are designed to do. They're also relatively cheap. They aren't super crazy expensive, which is always a good thing. And it's still quite a fun deck in my opinion. Of course, this person went for maximum emotes, and we got the Ambling Wraith for turn 1. Actually a really good hand. Some of these games were so quick you could concede on turn 1 like this. Not a surprise at all. I actually had this happen more often than not, but I wanted to see what kind of pulls we'd get, and we got some fairly decent ones. So now for a bit better of a Rune match. That one was a little disappointing. I mean, instant concedes happen fairly regularly when you're playing Blood. And after the immediate realization that that was a sword one and not the Blood match, again, I have lots of these kind of videos lined up back to back, and sometimes those mistakes do happen. But Blood vs Rune again, set up this time, fairly decent again. Ambling Wraith, Cursed Brand, and Raven are all really nice cards. I wouldn't be surprised if to expect another reasonably early concede, or just reasonably early board pressure enough that they don't want to keep competing. I would say I could easily pull off somewhere around a 50 to 60% win rate with this deck, which is fairly decent for climbing, so somewhere in between that for sure. Knowledge Seeker, not a bad play. But we're just going to kind of go wide, get as much as we can to this board. And they're of course going to be focusing on damage. I've seen a lot of this rune variant. I think I've got a video lined up for this kind of rune variant, or a Daria rune variant. Very similar decks. They both focus on either, you know, burn damage or straight up just follower pressure. Either one will do the job just fine for rune. And he's still going wide, and they did leave us with a full board, so this is going to definitely be over reasonably quickly. You don't want to mess around with blood when they're on a full board and going into their Evo turn. I even decided to put more pressure out and just kind of draw some cards, and I'm glad I did, because we did get Commander, which is, with an Evo, 5 damage Storm, so that's a very respectable draw. Zealot of Truth with an enhanced sword on its own, really not enough, and since they have 0 play points, they're not removing these amulets very quickly. And even if they didn't, we were going to win with this board, so pretty happy with that one. So if you're looking for a deck that runs very quickly and is reasonably cheap, I would definitely recommend playing an aggro blood deck right now. They seem to do very well. I mean, you can get away with easily just the 3 legendaries in this deck pretty comfortably and still do well. Honestly, it's going to come a little down to what you come up against. A lot of the time, since Rune is fairly popular, this deck does have an okay matchup against Rune. I would say it's really, really heavily dependent on how lucky the Rune player gets. You can pretty much be consistent no matter what. But if the Rune player gets a good hand, they may just crush you. If they get a average to bad hand, this deck tends to win out. So definitely not bad overall. If you guys did enjoy this video, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe. You'll find the deck list in the description below. Until next time, guys, see ya.